Hello and welcome to this fourth episode in our Christmas Carol GCSE revision series. If you are doing a Christmas Carol as part of your GCSEs this year, next year, the year after, this is a really good sort of resource for you. Each week we're going through a character or a theme, all the key quotes, model paragraphs, that sort of thing, to help boost your answers and ultimately boost your grades in this part of the exam. If you haven't watched any of the previous videos, we've gone through Scrooge, we've gone through the Ghosts, we've gone through the Cratchits. Highly recommend all of those videos. Also, if you're doing other texts, check out some of the other videos that I've been putting out. I've been putting stuff out for Macbeth and Inspector Calls, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, Lord of the Flies, poetry, English language, all that good stuff. So check out the channel, see what you think. So today's lesson, we will be covering Scrooge's nephew, also known as Fred. So as usual, I actually really don't like this picture of Fred. I should change that. But as usual, we'll go through who Fred is as a character, what he represents, that sort of thing, and what he does in the novella. And then we'll go through some key quotes and then finish with a model paragraph. So Fred ultimately represents, I forgot this one, but really forgiveness, hope, and Christmas joy. So Fred is the one character in Scrooge's life, even though Scrooge is all miserly and horrible and treats everyone badly, Fred is one of the few characters who actually just sort of forgives him ultimately and doesn't judge him for it and just tries to help up. He never gives up on Scrooge. That's why he also represents hope. Fred says multiple times, you know, I'm going to go to Scrooge every year at Christmas, and whether he comes to join us for Christmas or not, even if I can just convince him to be a little bit nicer to his clerk, who is Bob Cratchit, then that's a win for me. He also represents Christmas joy. You know, part of Fred's character, the way that he's described, he's described as having like a glowing face and being ruddy and handsome. These are kind of allusions to, you know, almost the supernatural a little bit, like he's almost like angelic to some extent. And in some ways, he is a bit of an angel to Scrooge, because he's the one that really offers Scrooge the redemption arc, his redemption arc, because when Scrooge goes to dinner, Christmas Day with Fred and Fred's wife and some friends and so on, that's really Scrooge's main redemption. That symbolizes the fact that Scrooge has changed and transformed and grown as a character and is now someone who isn't such a miserable old git, basically. And that's also probably why Dickens sort of mirrors Fred's most important two scenes in Act 1 near the start, and in Act 5, Stave 1 and Stave 5, I mean, in the novella. So in Stave 1, Fred comes to Scrooge's office and he says, "Come on, uncle, come for Christmas dinner with me." And he has a bit of like back and forth with Scrooge about why Christmas is great. And Scrooge doesn't really have a good answer as to why he's so miserable about Christmas. But so Fred puts out the offer, come Christmas Day, you're more than welcome. Even if you change your mind, just come tomorrow, be with us, be with your family. And then in Act 5, when Scrooge is finally transformed, it's really when Scrooge goes to dinner with Fred and everyone that we see the ending of that redemption arc. Yeah, so it starts in Stave 1, then Scrooge has this journey through Stave 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then at the end in Stave 5, this is where we see that completion of the redemption arc. And it's really satisfying as the reader to see what a better person Scrooge has become and is becoming. Obviously, Fred is Scrooge's nephew, as I said, so Uncle Scrooge and nephew Fred. I already said that Fred is referred to as glowing and also ruddy and handsome. I forget exactly where it is in the Bible, but there is a Bible reference of an important leader who is literally described as ruddy and handsome. I think it might be Samson. I can look into that. But yes, there are small biblical references to Fred, which again shows maybe Fred's sort of higher status and purity as a character compared to Scrooge, who at the beginning of the play is you know, in a bad way. He's also a dynamic deuteragonist. Actually, I take that back. He's really a static deuteragonist. So dynamic deuteragonist would suggest that he actually changes based on what happens in the play, novel, or novella. I'll get there in the end. But actually he's really quite static, because he doesn't really change. At the beginning, he's positive, happy, warm, joyous. At the end, he's positive, happy, warm, joyous. So actually, he's quite a static character. But sometimes static characters can then, you think, not be that engaging or that important as a character. But Fred is a very engaging, lovable character. There are these little moments with Fred that are just amazing. So even in the Ghost of Christmas future, where we find out Tiny Tim has died, assuming nothing changes, Tiny Tim would die, Fred goes out of his way to comfort the Cratchits, even though he doesn't really know them. So that's the kind of character that Fred is. He's incredibly lovable, likable, great guy, just really a heroic character. Okay, so let's dive into some quotes for Fred to help you out here. I don't know why I keep doing this. I am sure that I actually do delete these quotes out, but apparently I don't. So I apologize. I'll keep my Christmas humor to the last. So, this is a firm, confident tone. And this makes sense because Fred is representing Christmas and Christmas joy. He knows that Christmas is a good time, and so he has a Christmas humor about him. And that also establishes him, like I said, as a really likable character, a great character, a defender of Christmas and Christmas joy. I mean to give him the same chance every year, whether he likes it or not. So as I said, this is Fred's determination and his forgiveness, all that good stuff. So basically, it doesn't matter to Fred whether Scrooge ever comes to Christmas or not. Fred will never give up on his uncle. He will go to him every year and he will offer to have Christmas dinner with Scrooge. And I just think that that's an amazing family member, basically. It just shows his determination and his character, his incredible character. Let him in. So this is an exclamatory phrase, and this is in stave 5 when Scrooge asks to come in to Fred's Christmas party. And rather than, being snippy with Scrooge and being like, oh, you actually did come then, like just being horrible, he's just happy. He's happy to see his uncle. He's happy to see his uncle enjoying Christmas and being happy. Merry Christmas, Uncle. God bless you. So particularly that you've got the connotations of Christianity and redemption and all of that good stuff that I was saying before, because Fred never gave up on his uncle, always offered generously to allow Scrooge to be part of this family and be part of Christmas. And then the God bless you bit, it links to the fact it's a Christmas story. It links to the fact that the Victorians were mostly Christian, but also it's just this redemption, right? This idea that perhaps God now will bless Scrooge because Scrooge has stopped being such an old git and turned to, it mentions that Scrooge in stave 5 goes to church for Christmas Day. So that also sort of links to this idea that he's redeemed, maybe being more of a good sort of Christian citizen of the time. Extraordinary kindness from Mr. Scrooge's nephew. So, a lot of the quotes are going to be fairly similar. That doesn't mean they're boring. I'm sorry, I didn't sleep very well because I've got these 2 puppies that I've just rescued, adopted puppies, which I've mentioned in other videos. But so his extraordinary kindness. This could also parallel his mother, who is in stave 2, and she is this little girl that when Scrooge is a little boy, she's the little girl, the little sister who comes to get Scrooge from the boarding school that is horrible for him. So there's this parallel. His mother, Fred's mother, seems lovely, nice, kind, everything. And then he has got that from his mother, seems to be extraordinarily kind. I've always thought of Christmas as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time. So here we've got this long list of positive descriptions of Christmas. Here we see this is almost like a pep talk. He's sort of trying to get Scrooge to understand, look, Christmas is great, Uncle. I don't know what you're talking about. This is a fantastic time of year. It's a time where people are good to each other, kind to each other, forgive each other, charitable to each other, pleasant to each other. The charitable bit is particularly ironic because literally when Fred leaves Scrooge's counting house and says, "Merry Christmas then, if you're not coming to visit me tomorrow," a charity worker literally walks in next. And what does Scrooge say? He says, "If the poor are poor, they should just die or they should just go to prison. It's not my problem," basically is what Scrooge says. So he's the opposite of charitable, literally, right there. The least charitable man in all of London. Though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe it has done me good. Little typo there. So we've got this juxtaposition between materialism and emotional health, basically. So Fred isn't like, so Fred formed, this is something I should add to the list. Fred also forms a dichotomy with Scrooge. Dichotomy is just a fancy word for division. And the reason that it's a dichotomy is because while Scrooge only cares about every scrap of gold or silver in his pocket, Fred only cares about, I'm so sorry, the dogs kept me up. Fred is only bothered about the goodness that Christmas brings. He doesn't care about the material side, the money, the wealth, all that stuff. That's not what Fred cares about. What right have you to be miserable? You are rich enough. So Fred is, this is a sort of fairly cheeky tone, sort of joking, trying to shake Scrooge up. Just Scrooge says, why are you, this quote is the same actually. Why are you being miserable? You're rich enough. So Scrooge's argument is, why are you being so happy, Fred? You're poor. Oh, I need to edit out these yawns. I'm sorry. You're poor enough. And then Fred just turns it back on him and he says, why are you miserable? You're rich enough. Like, why be miserable? So again, this just shows how Fred is this like lovable character. He's playing around with his uncle. He's trying to get his uncle to be nicer, basically. Come dine with us tomorrow. So we've got this sort of imperative tone, welcoming. He wants his uncle to come have dinner, Christmas dinner. I'm sorry with all my heart to find you so resolute. So he actually pities Scrooge. So whilst everyone else just sort of ignores Scrooge or thinks Scrooge is terrible, Fred, his nephew, actually just pities him. He just thinks it's terrible that he's this way. I mean to give him the same chance every year, whether I like it or not, for I pity him. Yeah, I've already done that bit of the quote, so I'll delete that bit out. I pity him. I mean, obviously we can see what that means. It's just interesting that Fred never gives up. And this is when he's talking to others in the Christmas party in stave 3, which is the Ghost of Christmas Present. So when Fred is actually having his Christmas party as if it were Christmas Day. I'll keep my Christmas humor to the last. We've already done that one, so I apologize. And then ruddy and handsome. So this is positive physical description of Fred, makes him seem like a more positive character, basically. All right. There are more quotes for Fred than that, but I think that those are some of the really good, strong ones overall. So feel free to use any of those. As usual, we will then go into the significance or how the character is presented and do a model paragraph for Fred. So we'll be doing point, evidence, technique, explanation, reader response, context, same as usual. For almost every exam board, that is what you need to include. And for most of you, that's AO1, so good ideas, good sort of points. AO2, good analysis, breaking down quotes, explaining how they prove your point. AO3, good reader, thinking about reader response and context and how what you're talking about would impact the reader and how it would be received and why it was created the way it was because of the context of the play or novel or text, whatever it is. In this case, a novel. I always call A Christmas Carol a play. I don't know why, probably because it's very short like a play, but it is not a play. Okay, so one of the most significant things about Fred is that he offers Scrooge his redemption arc. That's what we're going to talk about in the model paragraph. One of the most significant reasons why Fred is important is because he offers Scrooge his redemption arc. I would actually say he is instrumental in Scrooge's redemption arc. see this when Fred initially in stave 1 says, "Come dine with us tomorrow." As the imperative tone suggests that Fred is sincere in his offer, and all he wants is for his uncle to find the joy of Christmas. This also presents Fred as a very positive character. Later in stave 5, when Scrooge is able to transform, Fred letting him into dinner, Christmas dinner, notes or solidifies the transformation and redemption. What's the quote? Let him in. The exclamatory phrase, "let him in," also helps to show the joy that Fred genuinely has that his uncle is changed, and this indicates that Scrooge has saved himself from the terrible, hellish fate of Marley, his business partner. This, as the reader, this is very satisfying. We wanted Scrooge to improve. This is significant, or this is interesting when you consider Dickens, who went from a comfortable working middle-class life and education to having to work in a boot blackening factory, and much of Dickens' work is to try to help business owners redeem their behavior, their poor behavior and treatment of the working class that they employed. So I've talked about this before, the boot blackening factory, the fact that Dickens worked there, all that stuff as a kid, as a young kid, after his dad went to debtor's prison. But I think that in this particular thing, thinking about redemption, that's a big thing that Dickens wants, is redemption for people. So I think that that's really all of the major stuff about Fred. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any comments or questions, please comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, great work today. And I will see you on the next one.